How do you like to be addressed?
Robert,
Great.
I watched your show with President Trump. It was really good. The best I've ever seen him presenting himself. I think you brought out the best in him.
That was my plan. Robert, I'm very proud to sit down with you, by the way. And I do try to be a different kind of interviewer. I'm not a politician. I don't know squat about politics, nor do I desire to. I'm certainly not some kind of gotcha interviewer. Being from a psychological background and dealing with psychosocial issues, I try to go at these things from a different standpoint. And you can probably predict my first question, which will be very, very predictable. I hope your answer is not. I've spent a lot of my time professionally. I was in the litigation arena, which I know you've got great expertise in. I spent a lot of time preparing CEOs of Fortune 100 companies to testify, and I know about having their 4 talking points and pivoting back to those, and I know how politicians go about it. I know you have things that you cover when you're on the campaign trail, and I hope, like I did with President Trump, for people to get to know a side of you that maybe they don't get to see every day. You're in a run for the President of the United States, and my first question is why? Certainly from a third-party perspective, the odds have got to be long. So why are you doing it?
It wasn't something that I was sitting around thinking, I got to do this someday. I have a really good life. I have an amazing family, and I have a job where I'm very effective and where I was having fun at and making a good living. But I saw something happening to my country that I couldn't really imagine. I saw this huge division that's so toxic now, so poisonous. When I lived through the 1960s, when my father ran for president at a time of great division, but I don't think we've seen anything like this since the American Civil War. And it's all amplified by the social media algorithms that are pushing us farther and farther into our positions, into these kind of tribal positions. But the origin of it is I believe, the capture of our political parties by corporate interests and the corruption that's come from that. And the political parties are fueling that fire. I think this presidential campaign will cost about $15 billion. And that money is coming from these big corporations and this new kind of oligarchy of billionaires. And when they donate the money, they expect something in return. And it's transformed the political parties away from democracy. Their function is to advance the mercantile interests of the corporations that are funding them. And
is that true on both sides, Democrat and Republican?
Yeah, and a lot of times it's the same company as BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, the defense contractors, an oil company and a coal company, and a tobacco company, and the arms companies are more likely to give to the Republican Party. And then, there's a whole slew of the pharmaceutical companies are more likely to give to the Democrats. But they're both owned by, interests that are not necessarily America's interests. And I felt I was in a unique position to talk about this because I've spent, my entire career, 40 years, suing agencies and large polluters and the agencies that they've now captured. I've sued almost all of them. I've sued EPA as much as any other attorney. I've sued CDC, NIH, FDA, the public health agencies, the FCC, the USDA. And when you do this litigation, you get a PhD in corporate capture and how to unravel it. I also felt like I had a clarity of vision about what this country is supposed to look like. And I feel like I'm in a unique position to see how far it departed from those values.
Historically, third-party candidates are not successful. So are you the exception? And if not, what's the end game? What's your ultimate goal? Can you win?
I wouldn't be running if I didn't think I could win. We're in a unique time in American history now where we have the 2 least popular candidates running we have between 70 and 80% of the American public saying they don't want that choice, that they want a different choice. I'm in a position, though, an independent candidate has been in history. All the polls that have shown me in a two-way race against President Trump show me beating him. All the polls that show me in a two-way race against President Biden show me beating him in a landslide. And, the Zogby poll is the biggest poll taken, and it shows me beating President Biden in a head-to-head race, winning 39 states and him only winning 11. I beat President Trump on a very, very narrow margin, but President Biden can't beat him. And there's never been an independent candidate who's been in that strong a position before.
Do you think President Biden is going to be the candidate for the Democrats?
I don't know. I think it's hard to imagine, but I think...
if they don't run him, who will they run?
I don't know. I stopped predicting the future in 2016 when President Trump won because I didn't think that was going to happen. And I just thought, okay, I'm not good at this. So I stopped.
Yeah, well, reading people the way I do, because it's my profession, I predicted with total confidence that he had the message, but he was not the messenger. I said, 100% he won't be elected. I said, you count on it. I know these things. Trust me. I was 100% wrong.
Yeah, my daughter, I have a daughter who never thinks about politics. Like, she has nothing to do with it. And she came to me at the beginning of 2016. And she said, Donald Trump's going to be the next president. And I said, you're crazy. You don't know anything. But
well, you're bringing up family. So let's talk about that elephant in the room, because your family has not endorsed your presidential candidacy. In fact, they've said in part, your siblings, Rory, Carrie, Kathleen, Joseph, put out a statement on X that said in part, the decision of our brother Bobby to run as a third-party candidate against Joe Biden is dangerous to our country. Bobby might share the same name as our father, but he does not share the same values, vision, or judgment. Today's announcement is deeply saddening for us. We denounce his candidacy and believe it is perilous for our country. And then others went on to say, we cannot do anything that in any way strips even one vote from President Biden. You put the Kennedy name on the ballot, and Democrats are going to feel torn. They also said they love you personally as an individual, but not your candidacy. How did you feel when you read all? Did you know that was coming?
Yeah, I knew it was coming. And, I have a big family, Dr. Phil. I think there's something like 105 cousins, and a lot of them are supporting me. Several of them who are working prominently in my campaign. My cousin Anthony Shriver, who is helping run my campaign in Florida, and he has a daughter who, until recently, was in the senior staff level of my campaign. But, my family, listen, we were raised to differ with each other on issues. My father orchestrated debates between us every night at the dinner table, and they differ with me on a lot of issues. They differed with me on COVID, on the lockdowns, for example. They differ with me on the Ukraine war. And my family has a very close relationship with President Biden. So President Biden has a bust of my father behind him at the Oval Office. I've known President Biden for 40 years. It's not just a political friendship with my family. It's a personal friendship. They actually like him a lot, and they're very loyal to him. And 5 of them, including some of the ones that you mentioned, actually work for or with the administration. So I understand their distress, but I love my family. I feel loved by my family, and I feel like I can argue with them in a way that is congenial, that is spirited, but at the same time, I'm able to love them. I wish that for the rest of the country too. I wish that we could have civil debate again without hating each other.
I wonder if people think, I don't know Robert Kennedy Jr., but the people who do know him are saying really biting and critical things about him. They know him better than I do, so who am I to second guess them? They know him better. Was that their intent? Do they really intend to torpedo your campaign? Because as an outsider looking in, from a psychological standpoint, I think people would say, I'm going to substitute their judgment for mine because they know him better than I do. How do you keep people from substituting this judgment for their own?
There's an entire national press out there that is very opposed to me. What I would say to people is just listen to what I'm saying rather than other people's characterizations of me. And that's the most I can do. I know that what I'm doing right now is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I feel comfortable in my soul with that decision. And I'm working as hard as I can to make sure that to save this country. But ultimately, it's in God's hands. I have to work as hard as I can. And the slings and arrows that I take from people outside are, need to be irrelevant to me.